Overpoweringly bleak environments, painfully melancholic soundtrack, mechanics built for the occurrences of the game and not the other way around? This sounds like exactly the kind of game I could get into, I thought to myself as I broke down and opted to curtail my money saving for just a little bit longer to add Sunless Sea, a recent roguelike adventure game, to my ever-growing list of games that I'll get around to. But things were different for Sunless Sea. There's just a hint of nepotism when it comes to this one, myself having been a once avid player of Fail-Better Games' preceding cult classic Fallen London, then known as Echo Bazaar, a strikingly atmospheric browser game that is as wholly original as it is Lovecraftian. And while I loved the progressive play of this actually really good browser game back in the day, it never felt like it was hitting all the right notes for me, almost like something was missing. Enter Sunless Sea, a game in the same universe as its predecessor, but set in the wider world of the Neath, the hidden world existing beneath our own sometime in Victorian England, and an experience that plays out much like a more interactive vehicle for Fallen London-style storytelling. There is much of Fallen London preserved in Sunless Sea. The primary method by which you interact with other characters, events, or places is through dialogue tree-style menus, almost like a choose-your-own-adventure book. A situation or a bit of dialogue will be placed in front of you, and you will be given a series of options on how to proceed. Based on your various qualities, these options will carry differing chances of success, with different outcomes waiting for you at the end. This right here is Fallen London in a nutshell. It is all menus and choices, and while the game is certainly interesting and intriguing, it carries itself not unlike an extended JRPG turn-based battle. It's an acquired taste to be sure, but Sunless Sea thankfully gives us a few more layers of gameplay to mess around with. Between interactions, there is a vast sea to traverse, with various islands and landmarks along the way, and it's your job to discover it all. If some of you are having nasty flashbacks to another certain wide-open world of water with tons of cool little islands to explore, well, the comparison isn't completely out of the question. But while Wind Waker stands firm on the belief that it's not how you get there, but the destination that counts, Sunless Sea is intent on reminding you that the journey is half of the, well, journey. There are resources you have to manage in real time, such as fuel and supplies, the attitude and well-being of your crew, and the ever-present danger of being set upon by any number of pirates, giant crabs, or living icebergs. Yeah, still trying to deal with that last one myself. There is a lot of anxiety that comes along with the gameplay of this game, not the least of which is the necessity of setting out to unknown waters with no guarantee that you'll find what you're looking for, or even anything worth finding. The game is, of course, built to make you feel isolated, alone, and afraid, and if the mechanics don't make you feel it, the aesthetics of the game certainly will. The game is incredibly atmospheric. The look and feel of the game hits all the right notes to make this a chilling, emptying experience. The abyss of the water below you is punctuated by subtle changes as you move about the Z, with trenches and submarinian flora that really start to play tricks on the mind after a while. Even aside from the looming threat of the terror meter, long stretches of empty water between destinations quickly become just as dreadful as enemies or monsters attacking your vessel. Even the way the HUDs and gameplay are presented to you amplifies this effect. The empty space of the game window dwarfing your tiny ship amongst the crushing breadth of the Z around you, the only thing standing between you and complete helpless defeat, never lets you forget that this subterranean ocean is in fact against you and wants to consume you. So the meat of this game is wonderfully complex and deep. There's a lot to discover and lots to do when you discover stuff, however the execution and presentation of the game remains as simple and consistent as possible. Tracking and eavesdropping on a gang of smugglers is exactly the same player interaction as sitting down to drink tea with an anthropomorphic guinea pig. Yes, that's a thing that happens. The only visuals we get of these events are blocks of text that are written very well and vividly, but that's more or less where the stimulation ends. We choose an action to respond with, and it's done. Despite the sometimes overwhelming amount of flavor the game provides you, the interactions between voyages can be streamlined down to reading outcomes and carrying on. This is a nice concession for people who aren't that into reading and would rather get back to the seafaring as quickly as possible, but there's at least one word that comes to mind when I bring this up, and it's repetitive. Yes, eventually I found myself less and less interested in what there was to read and more solely interested in the results, but even those began to wear on me over time. Sunless Sea is a game that demands a considerable amount of time to achieve significant progress. At times I found the game to be at odds with its own nature as a roguelike, or Rogue-Lite, as some of the games have been called in this genre, as it becomes quite easy to not die. I put almost 15 hours into a single round and found it hard to gauge my progress. How much longer should I expect to play for? How much longer can I play for? The game does allow the player to end a run and continue your legacy, as it were, when you feel so inclined. But after so much time spent on a single run, I found it hard to want to explore the other angles of the game. When I finally did work up the nerve, I found it to be a very similar experience, with only minor changes to the game's layout or progression. Sunless Sea is a game that makes a great first impression impression before normalizing quite quickly. The game is still fun, but much of the effect is lost when the player gets used to the aesthetic and is inevitably pulled into repetition to stay sailing. Subsequent attempts don't offer that much in the way of new experiences, but none of this should take away from the incredible depth of the world there is to explore, the eerily affecting soundtrack, or the excessively addictive gameplay. There is connectivity between the game and Fallen London if you have an active account, which isn't an angle I've fully explored yet, but what I've seen so far is promising. In short, Sunless Sea is exactly the kind of game I'm looking for, but am most excited to see a sequel to. The game is plenty of fun and it's chock full of great ideas which I would love to see expanded on. It's an acquired taste to be sure, so I would recommend this game to people who like contemplative, low-energy gameplay and don't mind a considerable amount of reading. I guess what I'm saying is, it's a vast and dangerous sea out there, and not just any old sailor is gonna conquer it.